Hey, Steve Saretsky here. As always, this is Canadian real estate market update with a particular focus on Vancouver. If you get any sort of value or entertainment out of these videos, all I ask that you hit thumbs up and subscribe. Questions, comments, put those below. Quick thing before we get into it, the Saretsky Report for August 2018 is now available. There's going to be a link to that below. So I encourage you to go read that. If you want to subscribe to it, there is couple fields where you can do that inside the PDF report there, but basically it's entire summarization of the Vancouver housing market, and I release one of those every single month. It is the most in-depth piece of content for Vancouver real estate by far. I don't know anyone else that's putting that out. I encourage you to read it. Again, some people will take away different things from that, right? There's no such, I don't believe in blanket advice because I think everyone's situation is different. I have people that read that and they decide that they no longer want to sell. They actually want to ride out any potential storm and you know, rent out the place or whatever. I don't know how they come to that conclusion. But again, that is to each their own. Some people look at it and say, wow, the market's, you know, clearly we're nearing a down market, a bear market. Maybe this is an opportunity to buy, and that's how they perceive it. So I don't try to convince anyone, or I'm not a fund manager at the end of the day. But I do believe in transparency in the market as someone that myself that is on a daily basis in the market, analyzing the data, meeting with developers, land acquisition guys, commercial brokers, mortgage investment corps, private lenders. I try to basically take all that information, compile it, and hopefully provide some clear analysis so you can make the decision that's right for you. Because for me, I'm always looking at, I go back, the one thing that's always sort of held true is looking at how the U.S. housing market played out, and to see how much deception there really was back in. There's a famous Wall Street Journal article on the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, David Lira, who basically pumped out all these rosy forecasts. The market was rebounding. We were going to see a major correction. I believe in 2007, at the end of 2007, he actually said, quote, this is likely the bottom for U.S. Real estate. So, you can see how wrong the guy was, but unfortunately, I'm sure there was many people that relied on that and took his word as the gospel, and so I'm very nervous. That's always hit home to me because I think there's so much deception out there. Same thing with I think a lot of the bank economist stuff that they put out. Obviously, they're managing hundreds of billions of dollars in mortgage-backed securities, etc. So they need to instill confidence. But it is what it is. So where we are today in the market, I know there's some forecasts out there most recently that are now suggesting that the peak declines are now behind us. The housing slowdown is over, and that prices are actually going to rise in BC for 2019. I simply do not see that. I don't see any data that is showing any kind of reversal. I would actually say that things are getting worse. Credit conditions are certainly getting tighter. If you watched the last video, things are falling down that credit ladder where your fringe borrowers are basically getting kicked out of the lending sphere, so to speak. And so that's what we're seeing. I was at an event a couple days ago with a lot of the developers talking about Vancouver housing policies, etc. The land prices for new developments are declining. So land sites where developers would normally go and bid to build a condo are declining in price. Developers are looking at the market and saying, okay, well, the price is too high for the land. I can't really build at $2,000 a square foot and sell it for that. There's just no profit margin. The market is very weak. Who's going to buy this product? The prices are falling. And so you have to ask yourself, well, the developers aren't buying. These guys that have probably been, through a cycle, you're obviously working with hundreds of millions of dollars. You have to be somewhat financially astute. And so it makes me a little bit nervous to say, okay, well, if these guys aren't buying land, so now you're going to start to see housing starts, which are currently at all-time highs, will start to decline, and that is going to have a significant impact moving forward on housing supply, housing construction, but the entire real estate sector. Obviously, it makes up about 25% of BC's GDP, so any kind of slowdown is going to be impacting the economy. So that's something that we'll certainly be watching for. So, but again, these are the conversations that I try to have really on a daily or weekly basis. So I'm just provide those back to you, and then you have to make your decision. I've talked about the pre-sale market. I think that we're starting to see, again, more and more people trying to flip those contracts that with really, they really had no intention of closing. They're becoming more difficult to flip. So that will be a very important thing. I think some of the private lenders are starting to pick up the slack in terms of these guys looking for outs. They need loans to close on these pre-sales. All fine and dandy now, but obviously if equity continues to decline in the condo market, that will be a more prominent issue moving forward. But we're also seeing in the BC data is a retraction in foreign buyers. So again, people are going to get very combative on foreign buyers and how much of the market they make up, etc. But at the end of the day, all you can do is just say, okay, we know there's a lot of immigration, etc. But all I can do is look at the official government data, which actually shows me that in the province of BC, per land title registrations, which is as official as it gets, that foreign buyers have largely dissipated. They are now at 1.49% of transactions as of July 2018. They made up 1.49% of transactions in BC. And their actual spending, the amount they spent, was just over $200 million in the month of July, which is down 49% from July of 2017. So the foreign buying activity in residential real estate has dropped off precipitously. But again, this isn't like a BC thing. All you have to do is look at the slowing of credit markets, the slowdown in China, and to see the large impacts it's having on all these global housing markets. New Zealand is slowing down, Sydney is slowing down, Melbourne is slowing down, Seattle has now begun to slow down. Obviously, we know what's happening in Vancouver, but even in China's tier 1 cities, there's been a drastic reduction of basically a huge slowdown in price acceleration. Property prices are now decelerating. In many cases, they're actually declining in some cities there. So this is, again, what happens when you pull back the credit, turn off the credit spigots, so to speak. But what you've had, again, this will leave some overhang without a doubt, is you have basically a situation where you had a lot of foreign money coming in sort of 2014, 2015, 2016. This basically brought in outside credit. You had large credit flows coming in to the market, which boosted up, and then obviously you had local liquidity, banks being eager to lend in a rising price environment. So you had local liquidity and credit also increasing, and now simultaneously you have the foreign money retracting, declining their volumes by 49% on what they spent in BC real estate. So that capital is detracting at the same time that you have local mortgage credit also contracting. Mortgage credit growth is at its slowest pace in 18 years. Total loans issued in Vancouver declined 18% last year. So we know that is all retracting. So you're basically left with essentially a credit or debt. It's essentially a debt overhang, which we've talked about many times. There's some very good books I've talked about, House of Debt, Between Debt and the Devil by Adair Turner, and obviously Professor Steve Keen has done a lot of work with that as well. So you're basically left with this excess debt hangover. At the same time, you have a record number of housing construction coming onto the market. So that's, again, kind of where we're at. It's the reality of the situation. There's to each their own, right? I mean, there's certain trends that I'm looking at that I would not want to fight. You're starting to see this particularly in the suburbs, where I look at, Langley, condo inventory jumped, I believe, 111% year over year in August. At the same time, sales had fallen by 30 or 40%. I mean, the growth of inventory is just like that, and you have still a huge amount of new supply coming onto the market. But again, people are still buying them, these pre-sales, and they're willing to speculate on them. So, it really intrigues me. Abbotsford condo prices are down 5% according to the MLS benchmark, which is actually a lagging indicator. So it's likely more severe than that. At least, and that's also what I'm hearing from realtors that actually work in that sub area. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this week's video. But again, as always, you interpret how you see fit. I have realtors still reaching out to me, trying to tell me that Victoria is still hot. But at the end of the day, places like Victoria, Kelowna, they aren't exempt from sort of a global credit cycle, which is coming to an end and winding down, as these things always do. So we will continue to watch. I'll continue to provide some anecdotes for you based on my conversations with these other people in the industry, and hopefully it provide some value to you. And I encourage you to download the Saretsky Report for August. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.